All right, well, so here we are. We've got a few people watching already. That's good. So welcome back to Foaming at the Mouth Friday Live at BJB. I'm Troy. It's Haley over here. Today we're going to be doing something kind of cool. This is a live demo of actually a part that we did a actual, full-length mold tutorial plus part making video on. And you can find that. I'll put a little link up here in a little bit. But basically, we're actually going to do a live demo of making the whole thing from start to finish. Although we're going to take some liberties because we're not able to take sort of every little bit of time. Otherwise, we might be here a little longer than we would ideally want to be. We're going to do a cooking show, and we've got actually have some parts ready. But other than that, you're going to see everything as it actually would go into making the part. So what do we got going here?
We're going to make a prop bat today.
Prop bat. Okay, so basically, and if you watch the video, this is the mold from the video. We started with an actual wooden bat. Okay, this thing's the real deal. We kind of primed it up. We put a logo on it. Purpose of that is just so that you can see in a silicone mold that silicone will pick up all the grain of the wood, plus it actually will pick up the shininess of this logo, and it comes out in every single part you make. So we made this, and then we did a more or less called a silicone jacket tool. Some people call them mother molds, but ultimately you've got a silicone inner liner here, and then a rigid backup shell. Now we're using a product of ours called BR75D. We've actually recently done several kind of mold demos and whatnot, videos on this stuff. It's really neat stuff. So essentially this could be a good replacement for doing, fiberglass, laminating resins, all that stuff. So and it ends up being very lightweight, very stable, and it's really quick because you don't have to deal with wetting out cloth and all that. It's very dimensionally stable, good heat resistance, and it's also got impact resistance. So it's not like even like a plaster mold. Plaster mold is heavy, it's cheap, it's easy, it's quick, but if you drop that thing, it's going to shatter into a million pieces. And this stuff, we've actually dropped it a couple times, and it's doing just fine. So so let's set the stage. What do you got going so far?
So far, we started doing the skin in one half of the bat just to kind of speed up the process a little. The skin that we ended up doing was the FP60 today?
Correct.
Yes.
FP60, which is, in the video, you'll see, if you go check it out, we actually use what's called the BR90. Okay, so the numbers basically are relative to the durometer shore hardness. Now, if you don't know the durometer shore hardness, we've got a video on that one too. But basically, 60 shore A is almost like an automobile tire hardness. Now, the difference is, obviously, we're brushing this in a very thin layer, just to act as a nice, tough rubber hide, because we're going to back that with our polysoft foam, and that will give us a nice squishy, low-impact movie prop or cosplay prop, if you will. That's not going to be as heavy and painful as a real bat. So in the video, we used a 90 shore A, which really, for all intents and purposes, just means you're going to have a little bit of a stiffer skin. It's going to be a little bit more durable in certain applications, but a 60 shore A is one of the most popular shore A durometer type urethanes that we sell, and it'll work just fine. It's just going to be a little bit softer. So, and then we're going to back that up with the foam. It's going to have an armature in it, and so that way it won't be a floppy floppy bat. It'll look real until basically you basically get hit with it, and then it's not real. So. All right, so I'm going to grab a couple little things. Now, you want to explain kind of what we've got going on here so far, how many coats, what we've done, pigment-wise stuff? I'm going to go grab something else here.
Okay, so the natural color is kind of like a really light amber, doesn't really have much to it, so we ended up mixing up some of our white pigment and then some of the oxide. What is this one? Yeah, the yellow oxide in it to give it like a light yellowy tone for like the base color before they do like their wood grain finish or however they plan on doing the finish. And we've done so far 2 coats. It's looking pretty good, but there's still some areas that it seems like it could have a little bit more. So we're going to do another coat and then tackle this side as well. And then before we pour in the foam and close it up, we're going to make sure that we butter extra of the skin material on the edges so that when we close it, it kind of squishes out the side and seals up that seam, because we've done it before where we didn't get enough on the edge and then we had exposed foam, which is kind of a pain in the butt to try to seam or do any finishing on top of. So we'll try to do a little extra today so that that doesn't happen for this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's looking pretty good. We're going to do the 3rd coat. I don't know if we should start maybe on the 1st coat on this one first so we can have some time to cure and then do a 3rd coat on this one. So we're going back and forth.
Yeah, yeah, because we'll probably have a little bit left over where we can come in and chase a couple of these areas where we want to just get a little bit more material.
Perfect.
So once again, I made a pre-batch just to make this sort of quicker than doing it all at one time. I've already got some of the B component. You got the A, you got the B. This is the B component of the FP60. And the ratio of this system is basically 1 part A to 2 parts B, or 50 to 100 by weight. The FP series, the FP stands for fast production. For all intents and purposes, this is a castable material. So we can mix this, we can pour it into a mold, and it cures in a relatively short amount of time, anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, depending on the size of the part, mass of the part. But what's really great about this stuff is it's so quick. It's got about a 4.5 minute work time that a lot of guys like this to actually use as like a slush casting or a brush and mold. And then after about 4 or 5 minutes of filling in all the detail, it starts to thicken up, and then you can kind of chase it and get it to hang on the wall a little bit more. And since we're normally putting 1 or 2, 3 coats sometimes on a part like this, backing it with foam, it works fantastic for us. In the video, we used BR90. Now the difference is that material is designed to be a little bit thicker from the start. That works out really good if you're doing larger tools. So that you don't, something like this, I can be from here to here very quickly and chase the runs. If you're doing a large, let's say like a shield or something, like an armor shield, and you're over here and then you're trying to chase it, it becomes too much. That's where the pre-thickened material, like a BR system, brushable system, that's where those come into play. On a small part like this, honestly, we can get away with a lot because I can use either product. So we're going to be using this. So kind of already playing with the first skin that we already did over there. I've already kind of come to the conclusion that I need about, well, let's see, about 45 grams total. I meant to pour 30 grams. My brain was thinking 30 or 40. So there we go. No big deal. Just pour a little bit back in. Okay, right on the money. I got lucky. So I've got 30 grams of the B, and now I'm going to pour 15 grams of the A because it uses half as much of the A.
Brick in the Yard said something. Hold on, I got to go closer. I can't see. Our Texas crew says hello. Hello, Brick in the Yard.
Hello, everybody.
So I don't know if I made this shout out before, but we're currently making this bat for our new distributor, Brick in the Yard, which is in Texas. And we were going to be sending this out to them, and they're going to finish it and then have it at their booth at Transworld in a few weeks. So you'll actually be able to see the finished bat there.
Transworld being the haunt show.
The big haunt convention.
The big haunt convention.
Convention of all haunt conventions. It's the big one.
It's the spookiest, I imagine.
It is the spookiest. That's where like the big guys go to get massive amounts of props for their haunts.
Well, good to have you guys. Thanks for tuning in and watching. And I highly doubt you're going to learn much from this one because you guys are pretty good at all this stuff. But you get to see how your part is made.
That's true.
And I don't know, maybe we'll teach you a couple things. We don't know. I'm sure you could teach us a couple things as well. And obviously anybody else who's new to this type of technique, you know, some of these techniques are used pretty common in, you know, do-it-yourself hobbyists, monster makers. A lot of the, you know, big movie prop type houses will do basically what we're doing here. And this is how they make fake guns and fake weapons and all sorts of props that you don't want to injure. Even like places like Cirque du Soleil. Talked to several of those groups. They make a lot of lightweight props because you've got people flying around in the air And if those staffs or whatever sort of prop they're holding hits one of the actors, obviously you don't want them to get injured. So this is actually a very, very useful thing. So I've got my 45 grams mixed up, and I'm literally just going to come in here. I'm going to pour just kind of down the base. And then Haley's going to grab the brush.
They're never done learning, Brick in the Yard says.
That's right. I learn something new every single day. All right. You want to start doing a little brush?
I would do.
I'm going to come a little closer. I'll show you what we did. So basically, what we did is we took this cheap throwaway 1-inch brush. We took a little bit of our BJB CA glue, which is very thin, and we actually went in here and just wicked a little bit of the super glue in here. Okay, and what that does is it locks all the threads of the brush in, because these, let's face it, these are pretty cheap, and the hairs come out a lot. And then to make the way we do these brush systems, we also do this with epoxy surface coats and everything, is we trim about, I don't know, 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch off, and it makes you kind of a nice little stiff, a little bit of a stiffer brush where you can drag and really get into the detail. And then with the glue in there, it keeps all the stuff from falling out. This is a technique that actually a lot of people just in the industry kind of know. Mm-hmm. I learned this years ago in aerospace, as well as a lot of the prop guys mention this, and so figured I would show that in case you didn't know what that was. And while Haley's doing that, I'm back here at the laptop. I'm going to show you really quick which video I am referring to. That's our live feed, which is kind of wonky on YouTube for some reason. Okay, so if you go to our YouTube page, okay, and this is the home page. If you go down here, you can find it in several areas. But if you go to mold making right here, okay, how to make foam weapons for movies and cosplay. And if you hit this one, we actually had a lot of fun making this one, because we have a quite an exciting intro that you will definitely want to take a look at. Everybody at BJB was wondering what we were doing. So that is that's the video. You gotta go see. You'll want to watch it a couple times. It's actually pretty entertaining. And that's the getaway driver in the pantyhose. That's John, one of our tech guys. And then that was me with a flannel,
It was amazing.
a mullet hat, and
it was so good.
it was it was fun. I do my own stunts.
He does. That was a fun day.
So do you think, while you're doing that, should I take a little bit maybe and hit a couple of these areas? Or are you getting close to a point where...
This is kind of almost...
I'm going to grab, actually, I'm just going to grab a small acid brush. Give me 2 seconds, I can grab an acid brush.
So this, being the FP series, has gelled pretty quickly, so I kind of need to stop messing with it. We're going to let it cure a little longer, and then I can come back with the next coat. I might even hit it with this heat gun to speed it up a little bit.
All right, I'm back. So I'm just going to steal a little bit of this. And we already have 2 coats on this particular mold half. The surface is still tacky. Typically what we like to do is make sure that the urethane skin, if we're going to be backing it with foam, ideally you'll let this urethane that we're brushing in, you want to let it gel up and tack And you don't want it to be still sort of flowing or liquidy, because once you cast foam behind it, there's a lot of pressure, and that can cause potential issues. Sometimes we'll see like bubbles form in areas. You want this stuff to stiffen up just enough to where if the foam pushes on it, it can go into it a little bit, but you don't want it to move that skin layer around and cause surface defects. If you wait too long, then you don't really get the advantage of a like a chemical bond. Is this stuff still
It's
chaseable?
Yeah, a little.
So,
I need this.
yeah, when it's still nice and tacky, urethane foam loves to stick to everything, but if this urethane layer is still nice and tacky, it will bond tenaciously. You won't be able to break the bond. And essentially, yeah, you'll tear chunks of foam out before you ever get the two apart. If you wait too long, it's not necessarily that the stuff won't stick, but it just won't be quite as good as if you had done it. So it's a timing thing, and that just kind of comes with experience. Usually we sort of call it the thumbprint test. So if you have a material and you're letting it sit and gel, we'll kind of take our thumb and kind of, usually with the glove, but we'll kind of touch it and see if it's not sticky tacky where it's stringing up on you, but it might be enough to, like, say, leave a thumbprint. This stuff is still, luckily, it's still tacky. So, oh, is it going?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Another thing to note is that we actually, these are silicone molds. Silicone is a great insulator. So think of it almost like those things that you throw in your lunch box that keep everything cold. Silicone, if you warm it up, it actually holds that heat and maintains it for a while. So, and we'll show you in a little bit here before we do the foam, because we actually kind of want to speed things up. We made a little bit of a hot box. You can kind of see it over in that corner over there. And long story short, we preheated the silicone so that as we were brushing it along, the stuff would kick a little quicker. If you're in a rush, it's kind of a good way to speed things along. If it's a cold day and the shop is cold, another way to deal with, material that's not wanting to kick because it's so cold. And so we preheated these tools in there, and now we're working with nice kind of warm tools, and they'll stay warm for a while. And we only got them up to maybe 100, 110, and they, immediately will start cooling off.
Can we get that chat box up again?
I can.
Okay. Just in case anybody asked anything.
All right.
Oh, all types of things. We missed all the things. Let's say. Oh my goodness. Hi, everybody.
So, Brick in the Yard says, first time a mullet hat has ever been used in a mold making tutorial. That's funny. And someone's saying I'm great in the Rocketeer.
Yes.
Do I look like him?
A little. I still think you look more like Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
We need to make you a mask. The mask.
We've got some people tuning in from Turkey,
Nice.
and they're asking if we can make toys. Now, obviously, you can make whatever you want with these materials. We don't necessarily make parts for people, but if you're asking if the materials could be used to make toys, we have, we're not a name dropper, and sometimes we can't say who our customers are, but you can pretty much bet that if there's someone who makes prototypes of any type of product, from toys to medical training devices to industrial stuff, whatever, it gets made. Now, actual point of purchase toys, typically in certain volumes, people are going to be going to injection molding, and this is a process to basically develop the product and simulate as best as they can to an actual production run part, then yes. But we do have a lot of customers that do make sports equipment with these materials, because they're not making thousands and thousands of them. They're only making maybe a few hundred of them, and that's where urethanes are great, because they process very quickly. They're fairly easy to use. Here at the bench, we're not using special equipment or anything. We're using a scale, cups, and mixing stick, and they cure quickly, And then when they're cured, the cured properties are fantastic. Urethanes are very well known for being very tough, resilient, strong materials. And we have a lot of variety from everything from very, very soft skin-like materials all the way up to rigid and clear, water clear. So very dynamic, broad spectrum of uses for these types of materials. So I'm mixing up another batch.
And again, this is the FP60 that we're doing for the skin.
It's a fast curing 60 Shore. It's actually a castable material, and we're doing what is more or less almost called a slush casting or really a brush up. And we get away with it because this stuff does gel pretty quick. All right, so how's that right there? So we got any, let's see if we got any other questions.
The second coat always tends to hang a little better than the first because it's got that first coat to kind of stick to. So that's nice.
I'm going to borrow this one here.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, you can do this by yourself. It does help to have an extra set of eyes and hands to get areas that you don't see. This part is small enough, you could easily do this by yourself. But when you do get to larger parts, it's nice to have a couple people. You know, these materials are fairly forgiving and easy to work with because they're not so fast that you're having to rush. And there are people who are just fantastic with doing these types of techniques and making props out of this. I've seen some people who are, you know, professionals in the business that are just so fast, and it's amazing. I marvel at their ability to do it and do it quickly, and they pop out a lot of parts in a short period of time. But for the rest of us mortals, we appreciate having a little extra time. And then, you know, with these materials being two-part thermosetting systems, heat acts as a catalyst. So we can kind of use heat to our advantage. Sometimes heat is a bad thing if it's in the middle of summertime and it's, you know, 95 degrees Fahrenheit in your shop, or, you know, 25, 27 degrees Celsius, and you are don't have air conditioning in your shop, then obviously some materials may kick off quicker than you want them to do. So you kind of have to be aware of that property. All right, so this is number 2 coat. I'm going to just double check this one because I've got a little extra material. And I'm just going to hit this kind of, sorry, I'm kind of blocking, but I'm just going to hit this little upper edge here. What's also kind of nice about this particular technique is because the mold surface is going to determine what the part's going to look like. Even if I have some uneven spots, I mean, in here we were just kind of, you know, we're just trying to get this done. But I've done this before where I've just gotten a really nice, perfect, smooth interior surface. But even if I get a couple of wobbles in the surface, it's not really going to be that big of a deal. Because the mold is going to determine what that final visible surface is going to look like. Having said that, you know, don't be too sloppy. You don't want too many areas that are overly thick, because then when you're, if it's a prop that's going to be handled a lot and people are, you know, and if it's a function of the part to have a consistent surface and then the foam back behind that, and you don't want to have like hard lumps in areas, then obviously having an uneven surface to a certain extreme is not desirable. So you'll want to maybe just build the skin thicknesses slower. We're trying to build up a decent, tough skin because we don't know what these guys are going to do.
It's going to the haunt show. So
yeah, it's going to the haunt show. People are going to grab it, and so we want it to be somewhat tough so that it doesn't end up getting abused. But this is a great way to make very quick processing, tough but lightweight parts. So, you know, this is, you would be amazed at all of the types of parts that get used in movies and like special effects and costuming. I mean, cosplay people. I mean, this bat, you know, when it's said and done, this bat here, I don't know exactly what this weighs, but it's probably, you know, let's call it 5 pounds. And I mean, this just weighs a couple 100 grams. So, big difference. And if you're carrying this around, or it was an adornment on your costume that was on your head or whatever, if you were to sculpt it out of fiberglass or, you know, other types of media, that's going to get old and heavy and uncomfortable really, really quick. So, understanding this technique. You can also do this technique, I'll mention. You could even do this where you could have a flexible outer surface, and you could even backfill it with a rigid foam. And that way you could have a rigid part with a tough outer exterior. And urethanes are easy to paint. There's a number of paints. We have some stretchy paints that work well with it, but there's a lot of even just common paints that people use that you can even paint these surfaces. And so you can come back and add additional aging, whatever, I mean, or different types of paint finishing, yeah. So there's a variety of things you can do there. I'm just going to chase a little bit over here. Let's see. And feel free to ask questions. This is the good opportunity. We've got a little bit of sort of downtime to, we're just waiting for this stuff to gel up a little bit more. It's getting a little sticky. But there's a couple spots in here that are like high points in the molds. And the material kind of wants to run away from it, so I'm coming back with stuff that's kind of sticky taffy like, if you will. And I'm just very lightly just addressing them so that they don't end up as a thin spot in the rubber hide. Now there's a certain point where you got to just stop messing with it, because you want to be a perfectionist and keep touching everything with the brush and applying more urethane. But if it gets too sticky, too taffy-like, then you can start disturbing the layers underneath or around it. And so, like, I kind of got a little bit more urethane, but honestly, this stuff is it's pretty much gone. It's not really easily brushable because it's very, very sticky.
Oh, someone says hello from the UK. Hello.
Yeah. It's got to be very late in the UK right now. What are you doing up this late? So what do you say? I think we need one more very small layer.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll just do a dress. Okay, so I'll do a small batch. I'm going to mix up about 30 grams, and then we're going to use that last little bit to address any light areas that we weren't able to get on the first rounds. So the foam that we're going to use is a 6-pound density flexible foam. It's sort of like a Goldilocks approach. It's not too soft, it's not too hard. It's kind of right in the middle. It's a very popular foam that's been used everything from, we've got some big name customers that have used it for prototype vehicles. They've used it for headrests and seat cushions and stuff, actually in vehicles that you may have actually seen at the car shows and you didn't know it. We've also got people who use it for everything from special effects. They'll use it for sometimes latex skin. They'll back it with this foam, or they'll do urethane, use it for, dead zombies around the ground, body parts, that type of stuff. And let's see, the other The other nice thing about it, it doesn't really make a difference in this application. It happens to be a fire retardant material, so it's what you would consider a self-extinguishing material. So
Nice for haunts.
which is like ideally for haunts, that's actually a great feature. There's a lot more
And theme parks as well.
necessity in many areas that they want to see more either installed or active props and whatnot that are going to have some fire, flame rating or fire retardancy into it. Okay, so this should be our last batch of material here.
I wish I could see this far. Brick in the Yard has a question.
Okay.
Let me think. Brick in the Yard said, what is a good average thickness for a skin like that?
In terms of maybe like, well, I wouldn't really necessarily know a good number in, say, mil thickness, but you could potentially get easily 1/8 of an inch with this stuff. For this particular prop, we're not going to need that. It would end up gaining probably too much weight for this application, but there are some larger parts where you would want to get maybe up to 1/8 of an inch. So at that point, we would definitely either add more layers or just keep chasing the material until it gels and then get it in place. This is more than likely going to be a nominal thickness of about 1/16 of an inch, which is going to be, somewhere about 1 to 2 millimeter, somewhere in that range. All right. You need an acid brush?
I do need an acid brush.
All right. So,
Thank you. You could even maybe try rolling it around, like back and forth too.
yeah, another way we've done it on smaller parts are a little bit more easy to manage, where we've actually done, I could grab a couple parts. If you had a mold like this, a simple little face mold, open face mold, we actually did a run earlier today running this material in here, and we literally just poured some in and then just slowly rolled it around like it's called slush casting, but it's almost like roto casting, but without going full circle. And then once it sort of gels up, and then it will stay in place. That's a really easy way to do it. We've also done it with this life cast of, this is Angelina Jolie. This has actually got a very soft, flexible urethane, lower diameter than this system we're using, and then it was backed with foam. So basically you've got a very realistic, and this is great for Halloween haunts and props and movie special effects. Or
she's going to be at Transworld too. With
BITY's going to get one of these too. And this is also really good for medical training. So you've got something that simulates human tissue, and this could be anything from showing a prosthetic or an implant, or training nurses, training surgeons, training doctors. And this is a good simulation that will obviously not go bad on you. All right, so we're looking pretty good here.
Yeah, it looks great.
I'm going to hit just a couple more spots over here. Yeah. But overall, this is shaping up pretty good. And then in just a few short minutes, I'm going to show the process of mixing up the foam. We've got to first get the armature in there. If we don't have an armature, like I said before, this is going to be fairly, it's going to be fairly bendy. It's not going to look realistic. So there's a couple different ways you can go about using armatures. In the video, we used a wood armature, which is fine. I think for a lot of costuming type things is a pretty good way to do it. It's
but tell
very,
them what happened.
yeah, it's very lightweight. It is strong, but it's only strong to a certain point. And then if you hit someone really hard, obviously the wood will break. So what a lot of the pros really use, typically, they'll use like an aluminum dowel, aluminum rod, thin walled, or I should say thin diameter. I found this scrap back in our metal scrap yard. This is roughly a little bit bigger than 1/4 inch, but this still has a little bit of flex into it. And this being surrounded by the foam, you know, if it does kind of come into contact with someone, it's not really going to hurt. But the idea with the aluminum is even if it did really come and hit hard, it would bend rather than break. And then if you have to use that prop again, you could just kind of work and bend that thing back into shape and use it again. With the wood, you only get one chance and it's gone. Some people will also use like fiberglass dowels. They're very lightweight, they're strong, they're stiff. That would be another good one. But the aluminum dowel actually happens to be one that a lot of people do use. And if you had something that was maybe had some curve and shape into it, like a sword or something of that nature, you could manually kind of bend this around. A fiberglass rod, you're not going to have that luxury. Certainly with wood, you're not going to have that luxury. So the aluminum tends to be the sort of go-to material, but you could substitute other things depending on what your application is. So if you watch the video, you have to kind of have a creative way in order to suspend it in the middle. What a lot of guys do for stuff like this is you use fishing string. And you take the fishing string, and actually I'm going to prep it because once she's done with that, we're going to get going on that so we can pour the foam.
Now, when do we want to do the butter batch? Prior to putting the armature in?
We'll probably want to do it
Just after.
After the armature, otherwise
perfect.
we're going to probably be wearing it.
Great.
So I got a piece of fishing string here, and if you will do me a favor.
Yes.
So if you look under here, I've got, different from the mold making video, I added some drywall screws under here and here to help at least have something to tie to, because before it was a little bit difficult to center it. So we're going to have this here. So if you can do me a favor and hold that. I'm going to cut this in half. All right, go ahead and pull it up here. I'm gonna. All right, so go like this, and I'll just do a couple wraps of the fishing string. And I'll do this in such a way that I can still slide it around. If you really don't want it to move, you could easily grind some notches or something in the dowel. That certainly wouldn't be a bad idea. If I were going to make lots of these and I didn't want to have the risk of the dowel moving around on me, I would probably do something like that. All right, do one more up at the front. What's nice about the fishing string is even though it will protrude out of the part after we demold it, once you cut it, it pretty much disappears. You don't really see it as an issue after that point. So let's do this. Let's come to the side over here. I've got to line it up with the keep the string out of the goo. All right. So I've got a red mark here and a red mark here. I don't want the tip of this to be too low here. I want it to have some foam to cushion around it, and then we don't want it all the way at the tip out there. We want a little bit of a head of a cushion out there as well. So I'm going to move this over here. I've got to make sure that the fishing string doesn't interfere with the mold keys, because we've got some dots here and some divots there. I want the fishing string to interfere with that, so I made sure when I put those screws in there that I didn't run into that issue. I also took some 50 grit sandpaper and I roughed this up really good to hopefully get a little bit more of a bond as well. All right, so
You have yours there?
I'll tell you
I
what.
need to move mine a little bit.
I'm going to, what's that?
We're good. No, it's good. We're good.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah, that one is on there tight.
Yes.
All right, so here's the plan. I'm going to take a little bit of this. I'm going to go under, and I'm going to just do a very light wrap. So you want to probably do the same on yours.
Okay.
And then when you're ready, see if you can just slowly pull it across. So you're letting go of this, so it's kind of in the center. So there's mine. And then we'll go under here.
Oh, this is so much better than the last time.
Yeah, we were fighting it quite a bit. If you watch the video, that was no joke. We were. I mean, it eventually worked. So now I can just literally just take this and just wrap it around a whole bunch to sort of stabilize it, and then just tie a quick knot. It's hard to do this with gloves on, I'll be honest.
That's true.
But I'll suffer through it for now.
Safety first.
Safety first. fishing string is still very ungainly and difficult to
That's true.
keep under control, but we're doing it. This is where a third hand would be nice. Where is everybody today? Not that it matters, just trim off the excess so it stays out of the way.
You pull.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, is that number 1 or 2?
That's 1.
Okay.
I think, but now it's fine because I'm just nervous about
Okay.
this other string. Okay.
Very good. So now, on this other half, let's pull this up. Pull it kind of tight because yours is, this one's got a, yeah. So we're still on center, which is fantastic. So we'll pull this around a few times. All right. I'll just tie another knots. Oh man, this is probably great live YouTube
Yeah.
watching, isn't it?
Watching
us
us tying knots.
trying to tie knots in nitrile gloves with no.
It's okay.
We're almost there.
Okay. I'm good.
This is why we do well-developed, well-scripted, well-planned YouTube videos and cut out all this stuff. But at least you can see the struggle is real. And you don't have to feel so bad because we all have that issue. All right, make sure I don't get the wrong string.
This one too. Trim me,
One
trim
more.
me. Thank you.
Okay, so still got everybody? All right. So this is cool. So basically our mandrel or our armature is not going anywhere. So that will keep it in the center. So I think we're ready to go. So we're going to mix up some foam. Everything is still a little bit tacky, which is good.
While
Yeah,
you're
that's really
mixing,
tacky.
I'm going to bring this up closer so they can see it better.
Sure.
Okay.
I will mix up a batch to seal the edges.
Okay. This is it. Close up. We've suspended the armature in there, and our screws are holding it very well. And we're about to pour some foam.
So my suggestion for this would be let's mix this up and then we will let it sit in here for maybe a couple minutes, let it thicken on its own before we go and try to do around the edges because otherwise we're going to be chasing it. An alternative, which we could have done, but it's not really super critical. I want to show you that it could be done without it. You could add a thickening filler like Aerosil or Cabasil to this material. We've done that before. And producing like a seaming bead around the edge. That's very, very common in doing stuff like this. I would just warn urethanes. They are more moisture sensitive than a lot of other materials like epoxies and urethane. So if you're in a very humid climate like the Northwest Seattle area or Florida in the middle of July, you just want to make sure that those fillers are dry. How do you know if they're dry? Well, you keep them sealed up really, really well. And you try not to just leave the bags of the filler open. They will collect a lot of moisture. Fiberglass, carbon fiber, all those fabrics do the same thing. They do collect moisture as they sit out. There's ways to dry them out. You can put the stuff in like an oven and let it bake out. It's not going to hurt the material. It's going to be very inert. And then if you do that, then place it into a bag or use some desiccant like silica packets and stuff like that. Or if you have some way to dehumidify it or in a like an air conditioning type setup, that works good too. So we're mixed up. I am using our 6-inch mixing spatula that's on the website. These things work fantastic. They have just the right amount of stiffness and sort of flex to them, and they're very cleanable. A lot of times, you know, they get sticky and gooey. We just take a razor blade to them and scrape off the excess that doesn't stick because it's stainless. But you could also wipe it with a little bit of solvent, a little alcohol, a little acetone. But if you're using it consecutively like this, I don't want to be introducing a solvent into that, because if I have a little residue on there and then I start mixing something, if that ends up in the part, you can end up with some issues. So it doesn't really mess up anything if there's a little bit of sticky residue on it, as long as it's not to the point where it looks like it's been living under the sea and it's growing barnacles. Then you probably want to clean it at that point. So we're going to let that sit for a little bit. While we're doing that, based on the previous bats that we've made, we used a TC274 foam, which is Polysoft 2. We used that in the video. Because we're going with a slightly lower durometer outer skin, I'm actually going to use a slightly firmer foam. That's why I'm using the 296. It's still flexible. It's all relative. It's like you almost have to, I can't describe it, I can't tell you what durometer these foams are, because when you mold them, they kind of tend to feel different ways. But essentially, it's a flexible foam, slightly firmer than the really soft cushion style foams, but still it's got a good flex to it. And at 6 pounds, it's not overly heavy, it still expands a lot. We have another foam even above that, which is an 8-pound foam. And usually when you mold that, the real density of that foam ends up being somewhere between about 12 and 16, 18-pound density. And when you cast those at that density, you get a really nice skin. All right, so we're going to be doing 350 grams of the TC296. And this particular scale has a 300 gram limit, so I'm actually going to do it on my old school scale back here. It's kind of funny, people are always making fun of us, or me, because I like to use this scale, but it doesn't need any power. It goes up to several thousand grams. The only trick is you just got to manually center out or tear out the cup weight here, which really isn't all that big a deal. Okay, centered out there. This particular system is a 50A to 100 parts B. So I'm going to pre-measure the B side first. I'm going to put a little bit of pigment in so that we get a color that is somewhat similar as a background color to the skin color, because if we do have some gaps in the seam edges, seam lines, and then a little bit of foam comes through, you don't want a bright white foam or something to show. So we want to kind of nullify any issue like that. All right. Everybody stand back. I'm going to do some math. Okay, so basically I'm going to do 350 grams, and I want to find out what...
Oh, Brick in the Yard likes our scale.
50 to 100. So the easiest way to do that is think of it in terms of 100% and 50%. So I'm going to take 350 and divide it by 1.5, which is 150% in decimal form. Okay, so I get 233.3333. So that'll be my B. That's the 100 part of the equation. So 233.3333.
And this is almost ready.
Little trick to tell you when you are using one of these manual scales, if you kind of want to see if you're getting close, you just kind of keep tapping the scale, and then it'll start kind of getting light and bouncy. Double checking my math again. So it's starting to get a little bit light there.
So right now, while he's measuring that out, I'm doing like what's called a butter batch around the edges. That way when we close it up, it kind of will squish out the sides and will help to kind of cover that seam so you don't have any exposed foam on the seam. Because no one likes to do seaming. And it's really hard to do the finish over top of exposed foam. Believe me, I know.
And while she's doing that, if you are curious about the flex foams, you can come on to our website, bjbenterprises.com, and I'll show you right here. There's the TC296, and like I said, does happen to be a flame retardant foam, which means that it's self-extinguishing if it is exposed to a flame. But really, it's a nice all-around useful foam. Doesn't mean that it's twice as expensive or anything. It just happens to be material that was requested by many people, and there you go. So if you want to come on here and learn a little bit more, you can look up the technical data sheet. You can download the safety data sheets down here. The nice thing about BJB foams is they also demold relatively quick compared to a lot of systems that are sort of out there on the market. So that makes it very user-friendly. All right, so we're back here live.
This is nice and sticky now.
Ah, yeah. So now are you getting that on the edge?
Trying to, yeah. It's starting to cure pretty quickly, being the FP series. So I'm running out of material, usable material.
Mia, come over here. I'll help you out. So essentially what we're trying to do is create a little bit of an edge. It will create some flashing, but that's easily cleanable.
I'd much rather deal with trimming flashing than trying to do seaming of exposed foam.
Yeah, definitely. So what I do is I kind of take the popsicle stick and then I just kind of scrape it on the edge and create a little bit of a bead around the outside. And the fact that the whole flange is silicone, it doesn't really matter. It'll peel right off later. Okay, well we better get going because this is going to be curing quickly. So basically what I need to do now, I'm going to put the color combo that we've come up with for this particular base sort of, bleached wood tone is a little bit of white and then just a couple dashes of this yellow oxide, which is sort of a natural earth type tone. It makes it so it's not too bright yellow. And it gives it just kind of a nice tone. When the actual foam is curing, it will actually turn a fairly decent white. So you've got to kind of think about that when you're mixing up color, because if I look at this and I think, oh boy, this is too dark, rest assured it will lighten up once it's curing. And this is an interior color, so I don't even need to worry about being too spot on, but right now I'm looking at it and it looks pretty good. Color matching is always one of those things. It is not easy. It takes a long time to get good at it.
I'm pretty good at it.
Got to know your color theories and you got to understand the materials that you're working with. All right. So I'm going to get that out of here because that I do not want to pour in. All right, I don't want to forget, I got to put the A in now, so I've got to basically set the scale up for 350 grams. All right, so we ready? With
ready.
foams, they're very quick, so we've got to work quickly. Actually, before I do it, I want to get
A little
these.
fire drill. I think
It is. It's nice to have some extra hands, but we'll be fine. It's live. We've got to be brave. So once again, I'm sort of tapping on the scale here to make sure I don't go too far over or anything. It's getting close. Oop, there we go. Okay. Before I start mixing, I'm going to move because I have a bad feeling about that. Going to step up to our 8-inch spatula because I want to get this done quick and efficient. All right, so here we go. So most of the BJB foams you get about roughly somewhere around like 20 or 30 seconds to move quickly. So you've got to be good. You got to be good with your mixing. Scrape the sides, scrape the bottom real good, because you don't get a whole lot of time to dilly-dally. So what I'm going to do is just basically pour some foam up and down. That looks like plenty. And this mold has a lot of really, really nice positive keys built into place, and it goes together very easily. With any foam tool, I always tell my customers, make the tool go together as quick and easy as possible. If you spend too long messing around with clamps or trying to tape it or any of that stuff, you're going to lose time. I've already got foam coming out this one side, so you can see how fast it rises. Hence the joke about the fire drill. Here we go. And it'll start building pressure pretty quick. So we got to get this clamped down good.
I just need another. Will you tighten this one for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple little spots in here where you got to kind of see. This, like I said, this is the where you got to make sure everything's in really good. That went down good?
Yeah.
All right.
I think there's enough material in there, Troy.
There's plenty. Okay, so do me a favor. Tilt this up.
Okay.
Turn it this way, because this one's got to get clamped. This little spot right here is not cooperating for whatever reason. We've got to get it clamped, because you don't want a seam that's too far open. But hey, this is foam. It'd be great actually to have a nice hinge system on here. When we first were doing this tool, we didn't have the flats ground onto the tool, and it was very difficult to get the clamps to go on securely. So we got a little bit oozing out, but we got it clamped up, I believe, in time. So we should be pretty good. The high point is up here, the vent. So ideally, if we could get it together really quickly, we tend to like to orient it vertically. We haven't had too many issues with this particular tool having those issues. So most of the air will at least travel up towards the vent. Even when it's laying flat, it does a pretty decent job. But ideally, if you watch our how to work with foam video, we go through the process of, the foam grows, expands upward, and we want to kind of send it in the direction of an upper vent so that we don't end up with bubbles trapped in areas that some people think that you just throw a bunch of foam in, clamp it all together, and then it just figures out where to go. And that is a really bad approach, because it will basically go path of least resistance, and if you don't direct the foam in a pathway to a vent, a strategic vent, sometimes you have to have multiple vents depending on the geometry, then you'll end up with a mess. So this stuff is actually already getting tacky. So that's how fast foams are. So you saw how fast it expanded. Just while it's curing, I'm going to make sure. My gloves are really sticky right now. I got to get this one a little bit better secured. And while it's curing. Yeah, foam is sticky. So I just want to make sure these are on there really good. So then as it cures, it will maintain a good flashing. So let's see if there's any questions going on here. Someone says, that's a lot of foam.
It looks
Well, yeah. I don't mind having a little bit of extra coming out. Typically, if I were going to do one more of these, this is actually a different foam than we would typically use in this bat, and I know exactly. It's 275 grams is the other material. This one being about 30% higher in density. I calculated up a little bit, added up a little bit more. If a little bit of extra flies out, it's okay. The only places I would be concerned is just around the seams and whatnot. Sometimes, even if there is a little bit of a gap or whatever, you can still deal with that. And the silicone jacket is fairly thin, so it is very well supported by the rigid shell. And so that holds and maintains pressure. I don't typically recommend, and we don't typically recommend, to use all silicone for a foam mold because there is so much pressure. Even you guys couldn't hear it, but I mean, you can hear the hissing and the foam trying to escape this. There's a lot of pressure built up in there. And if the whole entire mold is silicone, the silicone is just going to expand and move, and you're going to end up with basically not very tight geometry. It's not going to, the dimensional stability isn't quite there. So a lot of times when we're doing silicone, we want to have that with a rigid jacket around it. So sometimes even if you do have a silicone mold that's 100% silicone, at least put a rigid box around it so you have something to contain all of that, because otherwise the silicone is just going to want to go everywhere. If you just had a long silicone mold and just wrapped a bunch of bands around it, it's going to try to go wherever it can. So, well, I think at this point, this is going to take probably another half an hour before I feel safe in demolding it. Might be able to do a little quicker, maybe 20 minutes or so. And we're going to let, once this part comes out, this one is, like we mentioned, is going to go to our friends at Brick in the Yard. They're going to do some final detailing of it. We don't know what they're going to do, what they're going to come up with, but you can see the finished piece at the booth at Transworld Haunt Show.
convention, yeah.
Yeah, convention. So essentially,
I can take it close up if you
we're gonna,
want
yeah.
chat.
You want to show the and then show the Harley Quinn bat that
I
we did?
will. All right, so this essentially is what the finished bat is going to look like with the BJB logo. Nice and blonde wood, so easy to finish. You can see the wood grain in there. And then I will show the one that I finished. This is a Harley Quinn bat. So just to give an example of something that you could do, you could also do the bat from Walking Dead. Got a little nice thing on it. But yeah, so there's all types of fun things that you could do for finishing.
Yeah, and you used a variety of mixed media
I did.
from a paint standpoint. There was a dry brush technique. We kind of show that in the video. Mm-hmm. When this video is, if someone was asking or said that they missed the video, don't worry. This will be saved on our channel. You can go back and view the whole thing from the beginning. Mm-hmm. It'll be saved. Plus, too, that'll give us a chance. We'll put some of the links to this and some other things as well that we mentioned during the video, so you can come back and catch all this again and visit that video as well. But yeah, this is a fun process. A lot of stuff you can do with it. And this just brings up, usually this sparks a lot of questions from people, mold making. You see all the, even we were struggling with getting clamps on and stuff like that. These are all part of the things where we try to help our customers come up with good strategies to get parts and molds that work well for them, as opposed to fighting it the whole time. If you do it right from the beginning, it usually goes pretty well from there.
Brick in the Yard asked what the shell material is. That is the BR75D that we're sending you guys. So
yeah, so basically this is a rigid, brushable polyurethane. There's no fillers in it. You don't have to add chopped fibers. There's nothing. It's really easy to mix. You brush it out, it hardens up and becomes a very nice high impact material, and it's very stable. Where's some other questions?
it says used to like messing with foam, used to color match in mold coatings for PU casting.
Oh yeah. So at this point, I think we're pretty much done. Maybe if you want to check out, maybe a little bit later today, or just if you run out of time today, Monday, we'll post some photos on our Instagram of how this came out, so you can check back in. see if we hit it or missed it, see if we got to do another one for the guys, but I have a feeling everything will be just fine. But ultimately, we'll post some pictures of this particular one, and then if you want to see the finished one, we don't even know what's going to happen yet, you can check that out at the Haunt Show if you're going. So other than that, so I think we're pretty much done here. We got a mess to clean up as usual, but that's what working with these materials is from. Oh wait, let's talk about who's going to be our guest for next time around.
So our next episode will be Friday, March 10th, and that's going to be Dave Gaylord with Matterhackers. So if you have any 3D printing questions, how to make molds with them, anything like that.
Yeah, we're going
to be here
hopefully
to
bounce a
answer all
lot
those
of
questions.
interesting things, and obviously they supply endless amounts of filament. They sell printers, they test the printers, they put them to work before they sell them, and so they're very, very knowledgeable. We've bought actually printers from them. I buy filament from them all the time. They're great guys. So Dave's going to be in there, so get some questions ready, and that'll be fun. I'm sure I'll learn something as well. All right, well, I think that's it for now. Feel free, if the video is posted after the fact, ask some questions there. We're always really good about answering questions, tech questions. Ask any questions on the actual videos, the other mold making videos and whatnot, and we're happy to help, and other people will see it and learn from that as well. So signing off, Troy, and
Haley Detroit, nice to
so
see you guys.
we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Bye.